So thank you everybody for joining this evening to another Foot.expert webinar. And as I so often say, and as Monty Python used to say, now for something completely different. So this tonight's episode is an interesting one because it's all about, so you want to do a PhD in podiatric dermatology, and it was just an idea that myself and Simon had. But just before I start, I just want to hand over to our two guests just to introduce themselves, and then we'll start things off. So Simon, would you like to start?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Simon Otter. I'm Associate Professor for Podiatry at Helath Sciences University down here in Bournemouth, and I'm course lead for our pre-registration MSc in Podiatry.
And with Simon is a colleague, Sophie.
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you this evening. I'm Sophie McKenzie. I feel like I'm a bit of an imposter because I'm not a podiatrist, but I'm a speech and language therapist. But I also work at Helath Sciences University with Simon, and one of my roles is the doctoral coordinator at the Bournemouth campus. So I'm here in that capacity.
So Sophie's the brains behind the evening.
So really, for me, it's just about having a chat, because it's one of those things I think that people often think about sometime in their career. And it's not always something people think at the start of their career. I think it's something as time goes by and you think, yeah, I've done a lot of clinical practice, or I've done a particular part of the work I'd like to think about doing a PhD. But I think it's good to start, Simon, because one question I get quite a lot is, what's Helath Sciences University? Where's that? What is it?
We kick off with that. So we are a small and specialist institution that provides a range of courses in the health science area. Just as a quick run through, so we have a very large chiropractic course. We also have imaging, both diagnostic imaging and also radiotherapy. We have a series of pre-registration MScs in podiatry, speech and language therapy, physiotherapy, occupational therapy, and dietetics. We also have some courses around sport rehab and psychology. And in our London campus, we've got osteopathy and we've got global health management. We've also got some courses in the sort of postgraduate, post-registration area around first contact practitioners. And we're also validating some apprenticeships. I'm going to look to Sophie to see if I've missed anything.
No, I think that's about it. I think, in fact, the apprenticeships have been been validated and starting. Yeah.
So location-wise, we're kind of almost in the middle of Bournemouth. We're quite nicely located because we're 10 minutes from the sea on one side. I think that's pretty much us.
So yeah, I mean, HSU is, as I say, specialist. Basically, it focuses on training healthcare professionals of the future, really, isn't it? It's quite a broad mix. And I think one of the things I think is important to say, and sorry, just leaning towards Simon again, is that we need more research in podiatry, don't we? We so often we have a lot of people who have done maybe BScs or MScs, but the maturity of a profession is often based on the ability to produce its own research, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'll start this now, and we'll probably come back to it. But I was just discussing this point with colleagues in Southampton this week, that if in the room we sort of the conversation about what are podiatrists good at, we might say, we're really good at relieving people's painful conditions. We're good at wound care, we're good at pre-ulcer care and preventing ulcers. We're quite good in the sort of rehab space around foot and ankle complaints, and all of that is true, and you could name more. But then if I ask the question, well, can we prove it? Okay, what's our evidence base that says that we are good at any one of those things? We all might just start to struggle a little bit, and we'll probably come back to that conversation a little bit later in terms of options for topics.
Because I mean, I would ask what areas of podiatry really lack research, but I think I can guess what the answer is. which is probably most of them. But so I think in terms of, people saying, "Oh, I wouldn't know what to do," it's a fertile ground, isn't it, for topics, and as you say, we'll come back to that. But so I suppose the question most people ask, and many of the people tonight may have a BSc, some may have an MSc. How does a PhD differ from, say, an MSc? What are the sort of key? What is that step from that master's to that doctorate?
Sophie, do you want to make a start and I'll come in, or do you want me to
Yeah, no, I can make a start on that, I guess. I think we often talk about levels in universities and different levels of study. So when we're talking about a PhD, we're talking about a level 8, which is like the highest level of study you can go for. So if you have a master's degree, that'd be a level 7, and then an undergraduate would start at 4 and go to 5, and then a graduate with a BSc would be at level 6. So those are the sort of corresponding levels. But I think it's different from an MSc because a PhD is more about original research. So it's an original area that's not been researched before, or not been researched before in the way that you're going to research it. So methodology might be different. So it's kind of, in a way, filling a gap of the knowledge which is already out there. So, one of the first steps to thinking about doing a PhD would probably be looking at what is out there at the moment, what is the extant literature that's out there at the moment in your particular topic of interest. And then your PhD would be novel and innovative research, which would kind of fill that gap of knowledge.
A novel contribution to science is what we're looking for. Science in its broadest concept.
And it's not necessarily what you do, it's the way that you do it quite often, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, lots of different methodologies that can be used to explore the area that you want to explore. So, there are obviously quantitative methodologies, qualitative methodologies, mixed methodologies. So it might be that the novelty in what you want to study is how you're going to study it, rather than the topic per se. It might have been explored in one way and now you want to explore it in another way.
Can I just ask the audience in the chat, how many people here are thinking about doing a PhD? How many people have considered it, and how many are just curious tonight? Just a one-word answer, sort of serious, consider, or curious. But quite a bit of curiosity. That's curiosity, good. Yeah, a few quite seriously. Yeah, I would. Okay. Yeah, no, that's good.
We like curious. Curious is good.
And I think the other thing to say about the PhD course is it's different from the MSc also because it's primarily, the onus is on the individual. It's not such a sort of do X number of modules, success, complete degree. It's about research, isn't it? It's down to the individual to express themselves and be creative, isn't it? And I think that's what makes it more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very much about your own individual study. So it's you have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about doing a PhD. That a lot of it is it's quite solitary, can be quite solitary, because it's all your own work. I have to say at HSU we have a system where we established researchers like Simon, for example, can sometimes put forward ideas for students to pursue. So it might be that there's a project that a particular tutor has thought about, and then invites students to apply for that, to carry out that research. But I still think, I don't know if you agree with me, Simon, but I still think the ownership is definitely the student. So the initial idea might have been yours, but actually the student will take that idea and run with it and make it their own as well.
Absolutely, they'll make it their own. Yeah, we just provide that initial sort of impetus for here's an area that we think has good opportunity, and we know that it's kind of not been done before in this way, in this area, which just gives people a bit of a start, a bit of a leg up of, oh yeah, actually that. And often that chimes with things that people have been thinking themselves, but they didn't think it was viable as a PhD opportunity.
And I think one of the best bits of advice that I ever got was from a chap called Dave Sackett, who was considered to be one of the founding fathers of evidence-based medicine. And for the people who are just listening into this thinking, well, wouldn't know where to start here, something he said always stuck with me. He said, if you have a day in clinic in your clinical practice, by the time you finished your day's work, in your mind, perhaps you should have 3 questions about things that have come up during the day. So what if, or why does it do that, or so on. And so some of the best ideas actually just come out of day-to-day practice, I think, don't they? It's just something you think, why is that? No one's ever really questioned that. And the
Or
best
something you
ideas
see
come out of doing.
repeatedly, yeah, that you're thinking, that's another one.
And if you've got that sort of mind, that's always a good thing. Yeah. So one of the other things I was going to ask you is about there is more than one way to get doctor in front of your name, isn't there? A PhD is one route, and then there's this other breed known as a professional doctorate, which some healthcare professionals prefer over doing a PhD. What is the difference between a professional doctorate and a PhD?
I don't think we offer a professional doctorate as yet at our institution. Sophie, do you want to outline a bit of difference, and then I'll go, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, we don't offer that at HSU, and I have to admit I don't have a huge amount of knowledge about a professional doctorate. But I can say that before I hand back to you, actually, Simon, about that there is another route, which is a PhD by publication, which we do offer at HSU. So that's just a different way of getting doctor in front of your name, as you say, and it's really people who have obviously published before, so maybe published 5, 6 really good papers, which are published in good peer-reviewed journals, and then the student will pull together a sort of common thread in a sort of smaller thesis. So pulling together all those publications into a shorter thesis than you would normally do for a traditional PhD. So that's just another route, another way of doing it. But I'd hand over to you, Simon, for the professional doctorate.
Ivan can talk at length about a PhD by publication, because I believe that was yours, Ivan. But
sorry, Ivan. Sorry, I didn't realise.
It's right. It's right. No, I didn't know that. I've learned something tonight about HSU there that you do PhD. But Simon, sorry, and then we'll come back to that.
So the PhD by sort of a professional doctorate, sometimes called a taught PhD, tends to be more structured. So there's more sort of taught components to it than a traditional PhD. So a traditional PhD is purely by research. I would say at the start there is some research methods training, which is always useful for everybody, but the bulk of the work is undertaking a decent sized research project, even if you separate it up into a series of more manageable bite-sized bits, and you put that together in a single document. Whereas a talk doctorate, they vary tremendously, and therein lies something of a problem. So they vary tremendously in how much is taught and how much research you do. But there's one probably really important point that people need to bear in mind, is that a PhD is, in reality, it is your baseline research training. It is your training to be a researcher. And the thing about that is that the PhD is then a gateway to other activities. It's the gateway to postdoc fellowships. It's the gateway to funding opportunities. It's the gateway to further pieces of research. And often, and particularly thinking about funding councils, because of the variability that they see in professional doctorates, if you have a professional doctorate, that would normally preclude you from seeking further research funding and further research opportunities. And regardless of the sort of rights or wrongs of that, that's the reality of the world that we live in. And of course, the thing about that is that as you go through this research journey, you think, actually, I'm really quite enjoying this, and I'm coming up with more questions, because one of the things about these research projects is they throw up as many questions as they do answers. And to get to the end of that journey and then think, oh, actually, I can't carry on in the way that I would want to, potentially because accessing research funding, etc., is going to be difficult. That seems a real shame for the individual. I think the other thing is that from a professional perspective, we need more people with PhDs to be building the evidence base of what we do.
And that's good. Yeah, so my PhD was by publication, because by the time I got around to thinking about it, I'd published many papers, and exactly that. I wouldn't say it's any easier. I think in some ways it probably took a lot longer. My publication sort of spanned over 10 years. And was the thesis shorter? I wouldn't actually say that, because I ended up writing just a bigger thesis as I would have normally. But it was, for me, that was 10 years. But it was a paced 10 years. And of course, that's the next question. How long do they take? I mean, what's the shortest time you can do one, and what's the longest time? Because some people will be thinking of part-time, some people will be full-time.
Yeah, so Sophie, tell us the lowdown on that.
Yeah, so with full-time, we say 3 years, 2 to 3 years, but I think 3 years is realistic. And then part-time, sort of up to 6 years, probably. Yeah.
But there is a little bit of flexibility on that, is there? It's not rigid.
There's a bit of flexibility, but those are sort of rule of thumb. But I think at HSU, if it's a full-time PhD for 3 years, we're expecting, or you would need to put in the same amount of hours that you would if you were working full-time, for example. So if you take on a full-time PhD, you really are doing it full-time, and it will take about 3 years. If you're doing it part-time, we suggest 17.5 hours in the week should be dedicated to your PhD. So that's something to consider if you're wanting to pursue a PhD part-time because you want to carry on working. Just making sure that you have enough space and time in the week really to be able to do that. It's not always easy when you're working. I mean, I did my PhD when I was working full-time, so it is definitely possible, but it's quite hard work.
Yeah.
And that half an hour is quite important, is it, on the 17, do you think, to make the difference there? Yeah,
I'm just looking at the handbook. I think it's half time.
And the thing I might add to that, and linking back to topics, is that the duration means that this needs to be a topic that you've got some real passion and interest about, because otherwise very quickly it'll drive you completely mad. So yeah, you need to be in an area that absolutely floats your boat, to say.
Definitely.
So if you were trying to sell a PhD, okay, I want to come and do a PhD. What are the benefits for me? What can I get out of it? What's it going to do for me? It's not just about having doctor in front of my name and burning myself out after 3. No, seriously, what are the benefits, do you think?
Oh, I think if you have a passion for a particular area, there is nothing better than diving deeply into that area. And it's very exciting, kind of being able to stretch your brain, not only in your own particular area, of course that is going to be fascinating, but also just mixing with other PhD students doing research in lots of different areas. It kind of, I think it really stretches your brain, thinking about different types of methodology that maybe you've not thought about before. So I mean, I loved it. I loved just being able to get absorbed into an area that fascinated me. And I think as well, I suppose it's different being a clinician. By the time I did mine, I'd come out of clinical work and I was working as a lecturer, but I think I felt like it gave me a little bit of kind of academic confidence as well, to sort of show that I had been able to carry out this kind of research at this kind of level. I don't know, Simon, if you agree with any of that.
I mean, it allows you to embed your curiosity, which is a wonderful thing. But then it opens up doors that you probably never think about. So, I did my PhD. There's a series of publications that came out of that. You don't have to do that, but it's quite a nice thing to do, to be able to contribute to the sort of wider scientific literature. You can do that in this country. You can head to events overseas. I did my postdoc for a year in New Zealand, which I never expected. it allows you then to be part of other research teams and bring something to that team. You can then bid for larger projects. I was part of a project in my last institution. The last grant we got was 2.9 million. So there's opportunities there to do all sorts of things that you maybe wouldn't dream about sitting where you are now.
And I think, you know, for me as well, having done the PhD in a profession as small as podiatry, it does mean you sort of, I don't know, rubber stamp a sort of area of expertise, isn't it? It's just a final sort of, for me, it was the right there where I've got that. And it does, you know, it does mean that you're sort of identifying in part, you're sort of nailing your colours to the mast. This is my area. This is what I enjoy doing. And often because of that, you may be asked to do other things, not just academically, but also within the professional body or otherwise for your area of expertise. I think that's certainly important. But yeah, so, you know, professional benefits as well, aren't there?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, altruistic you are, you know, you're contributing to the development of your own profession. It's got to be a good thing.
And yeah, I think that's important because particularly a small profession like podiatry, we need a few more people just to stamp their feet and say, right, this is an area. And you know, it's a snowball effect. You get a few people in one area of research to inspire more and grow, and I think that's important, isn't it? And from a career perspective, what sort of things can it do for you, do you think? Get you that promotion?
Yeah, I mean, certainly it offers you opportunities that would probably otherwise not be available to you from a personal point of view. I don't know that's necessarily the main motivator, but it is certainly there as a series of options.
I think if you were to pursue a career away from clinical work and you know, if you're interested in going into academia, PhD is, I think I would say often, if not always, what's asked for lecturers and senior lecturers. Do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I mean,
These days?
interestingly, certainly in other countries, Australia is notable that if you don't have a PhD, then you don't get that opportunity. We're a little bit more flexy in this country, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd also add to that and say from my perspective, it sort of opens doors to things like consultancy and collaboration with industry and more broader than just the academic route. So someone, you know, some say, well, it can get you into product development, it can get you into consultancy, it can get you into a lot wider area. And sometimes I think, again, speaking as a practicing podiatrist, it's about having, I'd like to do something else. I'd like to do clinic 3 days a week, then X number of days, 1 or 2 days, I'd like to be doing that. And often it can offer that route to you, can as an established sort of badge, if you like. I was going to say, if anybody's got any questions that we haven't covered, please feel free to put them in the text box. The harder the question, we love hard questions, don't we? We'll even undertake a PhD in the subject if it's a really deep diving sort of question. But I suppose it's just getting on to the next question. Is I'll play the part of the potential PhD student and say, well, you know, I'm really thinking about doing one, but I don't know what I should be doing. What's my area? How do I choose? And there's
a couple of questions that's come up in the chat, so I'll do this first, and then maybe we can get to those because those are relatively straightforward. So it's about having an area that you are interested in. But one of the things about podiatry is that there are lots and lots of opportunities in that the methodology might be new, the area might be new, the area might be relatively poorly researched. So here are 2 examples, and Ivan will tell me if these have been done, because I'm going to look to the world of podiatric dermatology, even though it's not quite so much my own field. But I think that there's a really, really nice piece of qualitative work to be done about the routine general podiatry care that we do, that group of patients who leave the clinic and say, I'm walking on air, I think a qualitative exploration of what that means for them would be really, really interesting. And, it's not particularly flash in terms of our areas of clinical practice. There's things that are certainly more complex and more technically demanding, but I think we should be mindful of the good things that we do. And then if we also looked at that group of people and we looked at a more quantitative paradigm, we could do something like, you could say, okay, let's use one of the validated foot-specific outcome measures like Bristol Foot Score as an example, and see how those patients do. You could then compare that to a more generalized measure of things like quality of life, EQ5D or an SF36, and you could do a comparison there. You would need a much bigger group because you would have to control for some of the confounding factors. So we know that smoking, people who smoke generally report more pain. BMI might be something you want to control for. How long you're standing on average might be something you want to control for. But for things that we consider routine bread and butter work, and we kind of don't think about very much, there's two golden opportunities there just to demonstrate an enormous value in what we do.
Mm.
Mm.
And yeah, and I we often talk at length about history. Even it depends on, it doesn't necessarily have to be asking a question, is treatment X better than treatment Y, does it? I think people think it has to be.
No, it doesn't.
It's the only limit is your imagination. As long as you're doing it in a way that you can justify and make sense. It could be about the history. It could be, the comment I hear every day, oh, it's like walking on air, and that's not been researched. And it is an important finding to say, well, this is a PhD which is going to look at that and say, yes, we do. It has a positive benefit on patients. And there's 100 different ways of measuring that, isn't there? From quality, quantity.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about, research. It's your only limit is you think, how do I do this? What's the best way to do it? Or even better, to use 2 or 3 different ways to come up with similar, what we call, triangulate it. It's always good fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Can I just add to that? I'm sorry, sure. Just before we move on, that I mentioned earlier that at HSU we will each year we offer some ideas for projects, and there might well be a podiatry one in the coming years. But also there's probably people have seen it already, but there's a website called findaphd.com. Which just lists all the PhDs that are being offered throughout internationally, I think, Simon, isn't it?
Yeah. Right,
so you can always have a browse of that website and see what's on offer.
You don't, just to make it clear though, sometimes, if it's a funded PhD, you may be told what you're going to do. Yeah. But if you're paying, then you pay, you say, as they say. So if you're walking saying, well, I don't want to do any of that, I'm going to fund myself and I'm going to do this, as long as there's, support for that, that's good. So how academic, this is from Joanne, how academic do you need to be to get started? That's a good question.
Yeah, you see, I don't think you do need to be particularly academic, because part of a PhD is something of it's having a good workable idea. It doesn't have to be a difficult idea. It is about a good workable idea, and to some extent, the simpler the better. There is an element of, because of its duration, there is an element of resilience to this. There is an element of managing your supervisors, because you're not on your own in this. You get people who will help you, and they will guide you. I'm sure Sophie will talk about the sort of application process. But if you've got an idea and you want to reach out to institutions, there's always on the research side of institutions staff who are accepting PhD students, and often those staff will help guide you craft your initial application.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think inevitably it's level 8. You do need a certain level of academic ability, but I would say, look, you probably need more kind of doggedness than anything else as well. You just need to kind of stick at it. Yeah. So if you're good at sticking at things, that will take you a long way in doing a PhD.
On that topic, if I may, I don't think you have to have done an MSc in order to, as a gateway to PhD. It would help you, but you don't have to at all. I think if you've done some study at master's level, whatever that is, that will help you enormously. You know, it is quite a big ask to come out with your bachelor's degree, be in practice for 15 years, not do any sort of formal academic work, and then jump into a PhD. You make it just harder for yourself than it possibly needs to be. Not to say it's impossible, it's just more tricky.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that we say at HSU it would be different in different institutions, but in order to apply for a PhD at HSU, we ask for candidates to either have a master's level qualification, whatever that is, MA, MSc, MRes, or have a 2-1 in their undergrad. So we will look at applications from people who don't have master's level qualification, but I think, you know, Simon says it's so much more of a leap from level 6 to 8 rather than 7 to 8, of course. We do, I think Simon touched on this earlier, but we do at the very beginning of the students studying with us, we offer a PG cert in research methods, and that's really aimed at people who don't have obviously much background in research and need the fundamentals of different research methodologies. But if you do come with that, if you've a recent MRes, for example, and you've got that already, then obviously you would be exempt from doing that. But yeah.
Okay, so Salma, straight in with the obvious question here. You know, funding opportunities. How much is it going to cost? And I think that's an important thing, isn't it, to say?
Don't be the expert on the...
Well, I do have the details for HSU. Again, it'll be different for different institutions, but for us, for a home candidate, so that's a home candidate or Channel Islands or Republic of Ireland, a part-time PhD would cost you £2,451 per year. Full-time is 4,905. International students, so that's anyone who's not from Great Britain or the Channel Islands, would be 8,990 part-time or 16,761 full-time.
So I'm going to sort of blow your trumpet here. Your PhD fees, as far as my research goes, they are, shall we say, the most
competitive.
Yeah, the most competitive in the UK.
Okay.
I would pretty much say that. Now, you know, please go to compareyourphd.com. No, seriously. If you compare the market, I think, yeah, HSU has certainly got a lead on that. So something to be looked at. I mean, is there any way, I'll be blunt, I could do a PhD for free at HSU?
Yeah, so it varies from year to year. Some years we have offered studentships where the fees are paid for. And some years we've offered fee waivers as well. So the studentships, the fees are paid for, and there's also a stipend given to the student. And then some years we offer fee waivers where the fees are paid for the student. It varies from year to year, so it will be different for next year's PhD students coming in, but there is that possibility, yeah.
Okay, no, so that is a possibility, and if it's a really good idea, you might be lucky, and yeah, if it floats someone's boat at the university, you might be on for that's
we
good.
should have the fee waivers. It is a competitive process. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if your idea is good enough and you've got a good idea, yeah, never discount it. Yeah. So if academia isn't calling, I'm hearing that PhD is needed to get funding for clinical research. Can that happen for pods outside of academia?
Yes, it can, Helen. I mean, this was alluding to my last point that if you have a PhD, it's often seen by funding bodies to be the baseline qualification that you need to apply for funding for clinical research from a range of bodies, whether they are charitable or whether they are government research agencies. So yes, it can happen for podiatrists outside academia, and what you typically do in those scenarios is you're part of a group. So there'd be people who've got methodological expertise, there'd be people with the clinical expertise, there might be some statisticians involved, there might be some economists involved, but you get a research team together to conduct that sort of work. whether it's inside or outside of the NHS.
Okay. So next question, yeah. Here's a good question from Wendy. Are there opportunities for non-podiatrists who work in the profession to research podiatric topics? So do you have to be a podiatrist?
I don't think so.
No. It is a good. Okay, so there you go, Wendy. You don't have to be a podiatrist to do this.
Yeah, if you're a podiatrist, inevitably you have a view and a perspective on that. I wouldn't say necessarily biased, but you have a perspective, and I think if you come to the profession from outside, you have a different perspective, and that is equally interesting. And I think one of the things about a PhD and the people that surround you and support you, your supervisors and your external advisors, is that they offer those different perspectives for you.
Okay. Do you need to have an MSc? I've got an MA.
No.
So that's a positive answer for you.
Certainly not at HSU. I'm just answering for us, but no, we would consider people who have obviously who have any master's level qualification, but also somebody with a 2-1 with their BSc.
Yeah, definitely. I think helps you to make that step up to it's a doctoral study, but no, it's not a requirement. An MSc.
I work for the NHS. Could I study under the NHS?
I think it depends what you mean by study under the NHS. You'd need some support from your managerial team because of the time that it takes, and therefore they may have a call on the type of topic that you are researching. But yeah, we have people who work privately and or work in the NHS undertaking research. So from that point of view, I don't think it's a problem. In fact, it's a positive advantage in some respects because you have access to people and data.
And that's a good question for the self-employed. Is a PhD tax deductible? Now, I'm not going to give tax advice here, but there's certainly a good question to be asking your accountant, because if it's relevant to your work and it's not completely new, as I understand it, it's worth exploring, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, always get good tax advice before you. Yeah. I say that with all the high-profile cases in the news, political world. Yeah. Okay. So. Another question. Would a deferred year be accepted, or is it worthwhile just applying in the future? I'm seriously considering a PhD, but concerned the time commitments and personal commitments too. So it sounds like it may be broken up. Is it better to leave it till you're ready to do it in one stretch, or to start it and defer it? I mean,
I think that's quite a personal thing, really, and how it fits with you. I would say, though, that if you're considering a PhD, but it's maybe not quite the right time for you, there's nothing to stop you doing some of that preliminary stuff before the clock starts ticking, if you like. So, if you were interested in doing a part-time PhD, but you're not quite ready, that's going to take you 6 years when you register. But if you might have a year prior to that, before you register, where you're still doing some literature reviewing, you're getting it clear in your head what it really is you want to do. So in a way, it's a positive thing, I think, to have that kind of preparatory phase before you actually kick off the PhD proper. So I wouldn't. I would say if you're seriously considering it, but you're not quite sure if you've got the time to do it now, why not just explore the area that you're interested in for the next year or so, and then apply when you feel more ready?
Not wanting to jump the gun, Ivan, this might be an opportunity to talk about the sort of application process. But what I was thinking is in that, as part of that process, you need to put forward a proposal of your research, and you shouldn't underestimate how long that initial proposal takes you. And certainly there's no harm in seeking some advice so that you put yourself in the best position to commence your doctoral studies.
Yeah, you're right. The proposal for the application will take a bit of thought and a bit of time to prepare. So absolutely, yeah.
And I think my key advice to anybody thinking about it is so particularly to the people who've sort of been interested here, is spend a lot of time reading.
Mm.
Read about your area, start collecting a few papers and ideas, put them in a folder, and eventually you keep chewing it over, you'll come up with a question, and then that will help to form your proposal. And like you say, that could be done prior to your registration, and you could be a lot further down the track just by investing a little bit of time and putting that together over quite a
It's called
few.
reading for a degree for a reason, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's a slightly controversial question, perhaps, maybe not. Given the nature of a doctorate, to what degree, no pun intended, does the institute matter from where the PhD is obtained?
Well, I would say it doesn't. I think the more important thing is who your supervisor is. So I think choosing that relationship is incredibly important. Choosing somebody who is going to be very supportive and you're going to work well with, choosing somebody who obviously is interested in your area and has some expertise in that area as well, and hopefully somebody who understands the methodology that you might be undergoing as well. So maybe that's controversial as well, but I would say it's more important to select the supervisor rather than the institution. I don't know.
And that comes into another couple of points, but I think you're right there, because it's not necessarily just the badge, it's what you get out of it, what you can put into it, and the people around you. It's selecting the right place for that. It is exactly that. Now that sort of brings me into another sort of question. So you have an idea, you have a sort of embryo of a proposal, and you go to HSU or any other university and you say, well, I've got this area of podiatric dermatology. I'm interested in, looking at the quality of life in corns and callus or whatever, or it may be a dermatological condition. How do you find those people, or how is the process so you get your supervisors and advisors?
So all the institutions will have their staff biographies, and those staff biographies will give an indication of research interests. It'll give an indication of research papers. If you've done a bit of preliminary reading, you'll see the same names keep coming up in that particular area quite quickly. So you'll see with the sort of movers and shakers in that field, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Certainly HSU has all potential supervisors on the website, so you can look us all up and see who might have expertise in the area that you're looking at, or the methodology that you're interested in. And I imagine most institutions have that. So that would be, I mean, I don't know, don't want you to be inundated with people, Simon, but I think, if it were
nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't want you to be over, have too much work to do. But I think if it were a speech and language therapist who was interested in something that I might be able to help in terms of supervision, I would be very happy to be kind of contacted for an informal chat. So, I don't know. Yeah.
I'd thoroughly recommend an informal contact with, more than one institution potentially, because this is your PhD. You're going to be invested in it. In terms of the supervisory, I mean, I think what you probably need to think about is you kind of need somebody in your professional area, whatever that is, and somebody with methodological expertise. I think that's a really good combo for your supervisors. And then you surround yourself with external advisors who can basically open the doors that you may not be able to open. And that tends to be a combination that works quite well.
Yeah, I would say, if there's external people as well, because it may be a very specific area where there may be just a few people in the country. And quite often, if it's like a doctor in a clinic who works in that specific field and you're a podiatrist, having them working with you is ideal. Because they can give you the clinical perspective, the university can give you the academic perspective, and the supervisor can give you the methodology. So you've got the best of everything there, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, maybe this is a political question. Why should an international student pay £6,000, £6,500 more? Is that set by government, is it? Or there must be a national, there must be a...
It happens nationally. International students, whether it's undergrad, postgrad, doctoral, they always pay more than home students.
In essence, as a home student, in theory, you've contributed to your country's taxation system, and as an international student, not so much. And that, in part, helps to explain the differential in fees. And you see it at undergraduate level, you see it at postgraduate level, you see it at doctoral level.
Mm-hmm. And do you ever fund overseas applications, or is that just open to home students?
The fee waiver is only open to home
Right.
students. Yeah.
Okay. So next question. How important is it to live near the institution when studying for a PhD?
I don't think it matters myself.
I don't either. I think we have a number of students about to start with us actually in October, some new PhD students who are not local at all. What we've said to them is that it would be good if they could get to campus every now and then. So we've talked about enrolment, for example, meeting the other PhD students. Also, there'll be times when we, for example, put on a conference for our postgraduate PhD students, and they would be expected to present at that conference as part of their kind of journey of becoming a researcher, really. So there are certain times when we would say it would be good if you could attend campus, but actually all supervision, especially these days, can take place online, no problem. So if you're not local to us, if you're interested in studying at HSU, I wouldn't let that put you off at all.
No, not at all. I mean, I think there's a number of things. I mean, number one thing is quite early on, build the meetings, your supervisory meetings on a regular basis going forward. So for that sort of, at least for that term or that semester, try and link in with your other PhD students. We can help with that. So you get a community of practice and you can discuss and share ideas, because you'll come across stuff and you'll think, oh, so-and-so's doing that. I'll just whiz that on to them in case they haven't seen it. And that builds and makes the process much more straightforward.
I'd say that from my own experiences. If you know who's doing PhDs around you, sometimes it's like, well, they're doing that methodology, or there's things that you can, not double up on, and, you can say, well, that's very handy because they can immediately directly to, not to a shortcut, but help and direct me more precisely.
You can be your own peer support network.
I think that community is really important because, as I said at the beginning, it can be a little bit of a lonely business from time to time. So, being part of a community, but even if that's virtual, I know our current PGRs have got, their own WhatsApp channel. They meet regularly online just for support and chat. So, I think that's really important.
The other thing about the PhD is that because of its duration, it kind of waxes and wanes a little bit, in that sometimes it's going really, really well, and other times it feels it's not going quite so well. So it goes up and down a little bit like that. And those times when you don't feel it's going quite so well, that is when your peer support becomes really, really helpful, because somebody else will go, oh yeah, that happened to me 2 months ago, and this is how we solved it, or it disappeared and it wasn't a problem. And those sorts of things are incredibly valuable. Little PhD family.
So Joanne says, is a PhD more individualised than MSc, i.e. you can choose your own topic much more freely?
Definitely. If that's what you want to do, you can just go with your own idea. And that's the beauty of it. It's a creative process, really. It's an exciting process because you can choose your own topic.
And it is for two reasons. So firstly, there's a much smaller taught component to it than there would be with an MSc. And yes, it is in essence your study. Well, of course, for the ones that we will put an idea out, it's only a skeleton of an idea, and it'll inevitably develop and change a little bit. If it's fully funded, then some institutions may have a slightly bigger say than that. But in essence, it's your PhD, it's your idea.
So, there's a thought-provoking question. In your experiences, what's one misconception people have about doing a PhD that only becomes clear once you're actually in the middle of it?
I'll start with that. It has to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. It needs to be a straightforward research question. There's plenty of complexity to be had in even the most straightforward or apparently most straightforward question. So thinking this has to be a really complicated process, that's the biggest block and misconception, I think.
Yes, I think I would agree with that. And linked to that, I think I used to look at people with PhDs and think, oh my God, you have to be like super, super brainy. How do people do that? And then once you're in the middle of it and once you've got it, you think, okay, you don't necessarily have to be that super brainy. You have to apply yourself. You have to be really interested in a topic. And as I said before, you have to be very dogged and resilient. But yeah, I think that's what I would say.
And I would say from my own experience, as long as you're really interested in what you're doing,
Yeah.
it makes it so much easier. And it's actually quite a pleasure.
Mm.
And I'll come on to, one of the questions is how is it examined? And of course, the sort of, at the end of the PhD, there is the famous viva, in defense of the thesis. But actually, I really look forward to that because I thought this is the only time I'm going to actually get to talk to people who are going to talk to me for hours about what I've been doing for the last
You've actually read
number
it.
of years. And they're going to ask questions, and it's an enjoyable process. Not because if the supervisors have worked with you, got you on track. Derailing is going to be a rare instance. It's about just show them how good you are and what you've learnt, and and I think that's always good when you're doing a vive with a PhD student and listening to what they've done and how happy they are about it. It's like showing off what they've done, and it's like back in primary school, look what I made today, this is my research project. Okay, so we're just finishing off. We've got about I've got another, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. I'm sure it won't matter if we go slightly over. Sorry, I'm just going to go down to the question here. How does the application process work for HSU? Do you need to have an idea, or can you choose from a pre-existing pool of ideas?
Okay, so both of those are available to you. If you have your own idea, there's an application process, which, as Simon referred to, includes creating a proposal of your idea. So you would submit that application, and I think applications closed this year in the middle of May, around the 16th of May. So we would look at all the applications then and then offer interviews for each candidate. And they will be interviews with the potential supervisor and also the doctoral coordinator. So either me or Dr. Oliver Thompson is the London doctoral coordinator. And then post-interview, we would offer or not a place on the PhD for your own original idea. And then the process is similar if you wanted to choose from this, as you say, pre-existing pool of ideas that are put forward by current researchers at HSU. It's a similar process, but you would just apply for that particular project. So in your application form, rather than coming up with your own proposal, you would talk in the application form about, why you want to do that particular project, why that appeals to you. But then the process is the same after that. You would be invited for interview and in May, and then the decisions would be made in July.
But I would add, sorry, just to say, I think it's important to say that, don't just drum up a proposal and send it in without speaking to anybody. I mean, you're there to help, aren't you? I mean, just even from the idea, I've got an idea, can I have a chat, long before you even get to proposal. That's important, isn't it?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Sophie, do you want to sort of give an indication of how long the proposal might be?
Yes, it's about 1,500 to 2,000 words, so it's not an insubstantial piece of work, and that, as we mentioned earlier, is something that you need to put quite a lot of time and effort into doing.
We can help with that. We can give you advice. We can help you with structure, etc., which sort of goes on to the next question. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but. It's not something you have to do alone. No,
that's right. I have put the link to the research degree webpage from HSU's webpage there, and the application process is outlined there.
Right. I have an idea. Do I need to write a proposal to you first? Oh, I think we've answered that one. If you have an idea, just you feel free to chat
Get in touch.
with, yeah. And quite often what happens is you have a conversation, then you morph the idea and it changes slightly and it gets even better, hopefully.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think yes. Yeah,
the
talk to
process is,
them.
yeah, sorry, Sophie.
No, carry on.
Yeah, I was just saying it's an iterative developmental process. It's very rare that, your first idea is where it stays.
Yeah, and talking to, not just talking to Simon as a potential supervisor, but talking to colleagues at work and, in clinic and just bouncing ideas off all sorts of people is really helpful. I think it helps you hone your question.
And I think Simon, said it doesn't have to be complicated. Keep it simple and straightforward. It's a very, it is a principle, and that way, you don't get extra marks for complexity or changing the world even. Just a little bit. You're just adding a little bit, a tiny little Lego brick to the body of knowledge, aren't you?
I'm sorry, this is a PhD and not a Nobel Prize. I don't want to say that.
So, someone's just said, is there a branch of the university in London or is it a different institution?
Yeah,
Would
no,
it be...
it's another campus that we have in London. Yeah, as Simon said at the beginning, they teach osteopathy and health management,
Global health management, yeah.
global health management on the London campus, but it's part of HSU. Yeah.
So, but it's all part of the same. And as we said, you don't necessarily have to be there full time, do you?
Yeah, no, we have doctoral coordinators at each site. So Sophie's the Bournemouth site coordinator, and there's Oliver's the London site coordinator. So wherever you are is fine.
Okay, that's good. So, I mean, we've covered quite a lot. We're almost at 9 o'clock. Are there any other questions? I mean, it's summarising all this. I would say what has come through is that you don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be the height of academia. All it takes is a good idea, a bit of determination, and a little bit of persistence. That's what I got from my PhD, and I think that's what I'm hearing from you two as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
I really enjoyed my PhD
I
experience.
did.
That whole journey was fantastic. Yes, it had ups and downs, but on the whole, it was really, really good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too.
And it's nice to see it sitting on the shelf. I'm just looking across here and think, oh, I did that. Yeah, and you think, my goodness, how did I do that? But it is an enjoyable process. It's not something you have to gruel your way through and think, oh, why did I do that for? It's most people come out at the other end and they're smiling and thinking, yeah, I really enjoyed that. So if there's any other questions or anything else, Simon, you want to add, or Sophie, that you think is important at this stage?
I'm just going to put my email in the chat, not because I can offer you any help in what the subject that you want to choose for a PhD, but just if anyone has any questions about the process of applying, I'm more than happy to answer those.
Okay, and any final words, Simon?
No, I'm just doing the typing of the email as well. So that is there for anybody who wants to give us a shout. Happy to chat about ideas.
No, that's great. Thank you for that
opportunity.
So don't be put off if you're not feeling particularly academic. All it takes is a good idea and a bit of determination. And
an enthusiasm.
I always ask before you put it out of your mind and think, no, I can't do that. You might be surprised. But just to say, thank you to Sophie and Simon.
You're welcome.
And I hope it's maybe inspired one or two people to just give it some thought. And, it's not just for young people. It's not just for, 20-somethings. Most of us in podiatry, I think, are more senior in our years, aren't we? Without going into, comparing ages. But, I wasn't young when I got mine, and it's something that you think, oh, yes, pulling it all together, my career. So do think about that. Once again, thank you very much, Simon. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, everybody.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.